Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. We have the pleasure of having one of our partners with us, Mitch Brown from Datahaven. Mitch will be presenting on paperless redefined. Sorry about that. If you're tired of missing files getting in the way of your business, this is the webinar for you to be a part of. And just as a reminder, we are recording this webinar, and we will post it to our on-demand webinar library for you to review again or share with anyone. And you can find our library under our resources tab on our website at enovia.com. And we do encourage you to ask questions during our presentation, so please feel free to type those into the questions box that's on the webinar control panel, and we will answer them at the end of our session. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mitch to kick off our presentation.
Thank you, Angie, and I want to thank everyone for today joining us today. And I do want to reiterate what Angie just said. I'd like this to be an interactive session, so if you do have questions, please utilize the question and answer pane within the GoToWebinar screen. My name is Mitch Brown. I'm the Director of Sales here at Datahaven. And during today's demonstration, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off giving a little information about the company for those of you that aren't familiar with us. But really, we're going to be spending the majority of our time talking about kind of what differentiates Datahaven in the marketplace and what people are looking for when they look at document management solutions. There are a couple slides I'm going to dedicate to that, but really we're going to be spending most of our time in our demo environment so you can see Datahaven in action. And as we mentioned, we'll have time for Q&A at the end. Now, when it comes to Datahaven as a company, I like to refer to it as we've got kind of two elements of our history. The company's been in business for 25 years. And when it was founded, we developed document management, AP automation, and workflow solutions for CRM and ERP customers. Really, we were interfacing with custom applications that companies had built. Well, back in 2010, we realized that the world was changing. So we started looking at different solutions that were in the marketplace. And after a lot of research, we came on the Dynamics platform as the one we decided to integrate with. And this was done back in 2010. So since 2010, Datahaven as a company is really focused on, the Dynamics platforms, but more particularly Dynamics NAV and Business Central. And that's really where our expertise lies. Now, when organizations reach out to us, oftentimes they are looking to automate the AP or AR department. And when organizations are looking to go paperless, this is an area that I constantly see where the journey begins. There is an incredible ROI when you automate AP, and Datahaven really focused on that with our initial product offering. But what we started to see is that as companies, automated AP, once that became streamlined, they started looking at other areas where integrating a paperless solution could assist the business. And when they did that, they started noticing some shortcomings in some of the standard functionality that's offered within Business Central or NAV. And they noticed certain pages where they couldn't store information. So they started looking for a more robust solution. And that's really where Datahaven can come into play, because we allow users to not only store against individual records, but also things like payment journals and ledgers. And as this need started growing, people started looking for, a solution, as I mentioned, that's fully integrated, and they wanted to be able to store information, have it be easily accessible to everyone. And Datahaven does that through something called deep data linking, which I'm going to focus on in just a moment. Finally, as the need started to grow, as more departments started using, a paperless solution, one thing we hear is oftentimes they may want to access the information from other platforms, such as Teams or their CRM solution. And once again, that's an area where Datahaven can assist, and we'll get into that. Now, when it comes to AP automation and AR automation, when companies are looking for solutions, I do have a couple recommendations. Number one, you're using Business Central every day. So you want a solution that's going to be truly integrated. and one that's going to allow users to handle their AP within Business Central and being able to actively pull Business Central information to perform things like PO and non-PO invoice automation and matching. Also, the information that's in Business Central is also going to be relevant when it comes to exception handling for invoices that are coming in from vendors. So that would be where there might be a mismatch or the invoice comes in before the goods have been received. And with AP and AR automation, tying into Business Central is going to be critical in being able to determine, approval and revision workflows. So when companies are looking for an AP solution or an AR solution, these are some of the things to consider. And there's something that I'm going to show in a demo which Datahaven can excel at in streamlining. And here's just a quote from one of our customers where they use Datahaven's OCR capabilities to, process 250 documents each month with fewer than 5 FTEs. Now, as I mentioned before, AP and AR automation are often areas where an organization is going to start using a document management solution, but oftentimes the need grows beyond that once AP is in place. So when looking at paperless solutions and AP solutions, you want to be sure that it's a solution that's going to support you not only today, but into the future. And with some of the solutions in the marketplace, they focus strictly on AP. With Datahaven, we want to make sure that we're integrating with all the areas in Dynamics where you might need to store files. I put some of them on your screen now, but they include things like customer service, fixed assets, HR, sales, purchasing, warehousing, supply chain. And when we're storing these documents, and this is what I'm going to be focusing a fair amount of today's demo on, is something that we at Datahaven call deep data linking. And that's when you store a file against a record within Business Central, such as a certificate of analysis to a item card or a credit application to a customer. We want to make sure that that information is going to be available to users wherever they are within Business Central that it's relevant. So for example, if you're attaching a certificate of analysis to an item card, it could benefit people within the purchasing and sales team if they could see that information on any relevant sales order. And Datahaven enables this through a concept called deep data linking. When a user attaches a file to a record within Business Central, we're not only aware of how that file relates to that individual record, but we're aware of how it relates to all areas in Business Central. So if you're attaching to an item card, that item's on an order, we're aware of that relationship and can display the documents accordingly. Now, this is done all behind the scenes with no interaction from the user or no additional input required from the user. And it's one of the most beneficial and strongest unique things about Datahaven in my mind, and you'll see that in just a moment. And with Datahaven, the system is designed to grow with the business. So if your document management needs are very simplistic in the beginning, Datahaven's going to have a folder structure to display information based on your needs. So we can work with you to start off with what we call our baseline folder structure. But as your needs change and you might need a little bit more granularity in the folders and the way documents are stored, Datahaven will support that and enable you to configure or expand our unique folder structure as your needs grow. And with our folder structure, there are a lot of enhancements, which I'm going to be going through during the demo, and they include this enhanced visibility, security, and navigation. Visibility we've touched on with the deep data linking. Yesterday, I was speaking with a customer that's very interested in using Datahaven within Business Central, but they are storing a lot of information against an employee card. And obviously, if you're storing information against an employee card, we need to make sure that only the appropriate users have access to those files. And with Datahaven, we have security that can go down to a document level. So sensitive information, such as files against an employee card or credit applications from customers, we can limit who can see that information. And also enhanced navigation. It's one of my favorite features. Datahaven allows you to easily navigate around Business Central. And we constantly hear from our customers that that has been a real time saver within their organization. So I did want to put up a quote from another one of our customers, and this is a company where they ran into a lot of issues with individuals naming files using their own methodology and not following corporate standards. Implementing Datahaven, we can programmatically name files, and that will ensure consistency across an organization and ultimately lead to information being able to be viewed. I should say users being able to find information the first time without having to open up multiple files. Datahaven is a very robust solution, and we've got over 450 document-centric features. So whether it's something within purchasing, payables, sales, fixed assets, Datahaven normally will have an organization cover with all the document-centric features that we have, including workflow, OCR automation. We can do everything from barcode process, scanning documents using barcodes, and as I mentioned, the programmatic naming. So no matter what the department, Datahaven probably has a solution for you. And the last thing I just want to touch on before we move into the demo is Datahaven does offer cross-platform support. So the folder structure I'm going to show you in just a moment, that folder structure can be embedded in the applications that users are using every day. So we can embed it within within Business Central. We can also make that folder structure available within CRM or Salesforce. So if you're quoting out of CRM or Salesforce, we can make those files visible directly from within Business Central, even though they're being stored against the CRM application. We're also working on different ways that we can interface the folder structure in Power Apps, Power Automate, and virtual agents. And finally, we are interfacing with Teams. So if you have users that don't want to access information from Business Central, they prefer to do it from a Teams channel, Datahaven fully supports that. We do have storage options for storing the files both in a hosted option as well as on-premise. And with that, let's actually move into our demo. So let me get out of one moment to switch to our demo environment. Now, I wanted to start off really focusing on Datahaven's what I call deep data linking capabilities and kind of compare that to some of the standard features that are offered within Business Central. And to do that, I've pulled up a purchase order within Business Central for Progressive Home Furnishing. On this order, you can see that we have, 4 individual lines. With Datahaven, we have our fact box over on the right-hand side that's showing all of the files that have been stored against this record. Now, for comparison, I did want to just kind of show you an example of kind of our folder structure. So within Datahaven, we've got a copy of the purchase order that's been rendered. We've got the email that was sent out to the customer that's been attached. Or I should say to the vendor. So here you can see a copy of the purchase order that we sent to the vendor. We've got an attachment of the PDF from BC, and we've got a body that's been filled out, just letting the vendor know that we want to receive an acknowledgement email within 24 hours. Underneath that, we do also have support documents. I can add vendor acknowledgement documents very easily. So we're storing all of this information in kind of a consistent manner. Whereas if I go under the attachments feature, you can see I've got to do a couple of clicks and then we've got the information stored, but it's really just using the names of the files that were attached. So it's not renaming files to ensure consistency. So I'm going to go ahead and close that and detail where Datahaven's deep data linking comes into play. Because all of these files that you see in the attachment area are attached to this particular record, and the same thing with these 3. Where Datahaven is going to expand on that is we're going to allow users from the purchase order to also see documents that are attached to the vendor card. So if I need to look up a tax form or an agreement, if I have the appropriate rights, I can do that directly from the screen without having to navigate to those individual pages. Also, if you want, we can actually set up Datahaven where users can see information that's stored against the various items that are on this purchase order, as I mentioned before. So if I want to research like a particular item and look at quality reports, or if I want to look at agreement documents, I can do that directly from the purchase order without having to navigate to those item cards. With the standard attachments that are offered within Dynamics, if you want to see that information, you have to actually navigate off the purchase order page. And at Datahaven, that's what we're trying to avoid. We also provide users with the ability to get a complete transactional view with our deep data linking. Once again, with our deep data linking, we are aware that on this particular purchase order, we've actually received some of the goods. So we've actually done a partial receipt and an invoice has been created. Well, with Datahaven, I can see all of that information with the deep data linking because we know that this purchase invoice was created from this PO. So if I want to look at the vendor invoice, I can actually easily do that once again directly from the purchase order screen without having to navigate to the posted purchase invoice. But if that would be beneficial to the user, they can do that using Datahaven with our enhanced navigation. I simply right-click on the document or transaction I want to navigate to, and here you can see we've now navigated from the purchase order within Business Central, and let's switch over to the Datahaven view, and we're now on the posted purchase invoice, and I can drill down from here and easily see all of the information that relates to this invoice. And it's viewed in a consistent manner, meaning I know exactly what was attached to the purchase order. I know all the documents that were attached to the receipt. So if I need to find a packing slip, and then of course, I've got a copy of the vendor invoice that we received. And once again, I can view that directly from Datahaven. So the goal here, as I mentioned, is to really make sure that users, when they go to an area within Business Central, not only have access to the documents that are stored against that individual page, but that they have access to all supporting documents throughout the system. Now, the way we get information into Datahaven, there are a couple of ways, and let me just highlight that. So we're actually going to go and do a search for an order that I created right before the demo started. And here we've got a purchase order that's been created, and we don't actually have any documents or supporting documents that have been attached to this record. The only thing that we have access to using the deep data linking is anything that was stored against the vendor card in this case, and anything that was attached to the various line items that are on this PO. Now, in order to attach information, Datahaven offers a variety of ways, but one of the most popular is something that we call drag and drop. And I'm sure you've seen this with some solutions in the marketplace, but rather than having to save a file to your desktop in order to upload it into the attachments within BC, Datahaven allows users to simply drag the file onto the Datahaven fact box, and it will actually, hold on one second. Try that one more time. There we go. It will, when we drag and drop the file, it's actually going to prompt the user to identify the type of file that they're adding. Now, this is our baseline subtype option, or these are our baseline subtype options, but once again, this is something that can be configured or changed based on your needs. So I'm going to mark this file as a purchase order support. Now, when Datahaven's folder structure updates, we're going to actually see we've got the purchase order support email that has been attached. At any time, if I want to, capture a copy of this PO at a certain state, let's say if there are going to be changes, and I want to render it, I can easily do that using Datahaven. So now we've actually got a PDF copy snapshot of the purchase order at any given time. This can be used to email out, or we can use the standard functionality in Business Central to email a copy of the PO out to the vendor. And when they come back with a vendor acknowledgement, for example, we've received your recent order. I'm going to go ahead and drag this onto the email. And this time I'm going to mark it as a vendor acknowledgement. Now, there was nothing in the subject line of the email or the body of the email to indicate that that was a vendor acknowledgement. But with Datahaven subtypes, we've renamed that email to ensure consistency throughout the organization. And now whenever a user wants to see, has the purchase order gone out? Has the vendor acknowledged it? I'm not having to open up multiple files. I can easily track which file has been, or which file is the vendor acknowledgement. And I'm going to go ahead and let's mark these goods to be received. And I'm going to go ahead and receive against this invoice. And the goal here, as I mentioned, as I keep mentioning, is to streamline processes that people are going through every day. So for example, if you're on a purchase order and you have receipt information, such as a packing slip that you want to attach to the posted purchase receipt within Business Central, we want to avoid having the user have to find that posted purchase receipt and attach the file. If they're on the PO with Datahaven, we're going to allow users to find that posted purchase receipt. And in this time, I'm not going to use drag and drop, but I'm actually going to use a browse to a file on the network. So in this case, we've got a scanned packing slip. And I can mark it as a packing slip. So this gave me the ability to upload a copy of the receipt to the posted purchase invoice, or the posted purchase receipt within Business Central. And I'm able to do that directly from the PO. Now, this also means that whenever anyone has any questions regarding receipts, they're able to access this information directly from the purchase order without having to go to the receipt. So these are some of the manual ways that you can get information into Datahaven. We can use the upload, the drag and drop. We can also scan documents using a local scanner. But let's kind of pivot back to one of the initial needs that a lot of organizations have when they're looking at a paperless solution or document management solution. They want to streamline the processing of vendor invoices when they come in. And Datahaven can handle that. So when invoices come in, we can route them into a workflow where when they come in, it's kind of into a staging area. And emails can automatically be routed to this folder, so can scan documents. So if you're still receiving paper copies of invoices, you would simply scan them to a folder that Datahaven would monitor, and you would have your vendors send their invoices to a certain email address so Datahaven can automatically bring them in. And what Datahaven will do is with those invoices, when they come in, we utilize OCR, or optical character recognition, to scan the invoice and match it up against Business Central information. So for this first example, I'm looking at a invoice that's arrived, and this invoice has been scanned. Datahaven has looked at Business Central and performed a three-way match. And once the three-way match is completed, we've identified that this invoice is a match with two exceptions. The first exception is that the invoice contains a freight charge, and the second one is that there's a tax charge that is not on the actual purchase order within Business Central. There are two ways that this can be handled. One, we could route this into a workflow queue where it would get routed back to a member of the purchasing team to approve those charges, or we can allow the user to add the freight charge to the PO directly from Datahaven's OCR tool. So when I click on the add freight charge item, Datahaven will open the PO, add the freight charge, and then it will also receive that charge item. Once that is done, you'll actually see that the PO match analysis has updated to indicate that now the only exception is the fact that there's a tax charge on the PO that was not, or a tax charge on the invoice that was not on the PO. So let's go ahead and add that tax charge. And once we do that, we'll see that now we have a perfect match. So we can go ahead and post this invoice directly from Datahaven, or post this purchase order directly from Datahaven's OCR tool. That can streamline the entire AP process significantly. The next example I have is one which is another exception where the invoices arrive before the goods have been received. So Datahaven's determined that this invoice matches the PO, but we haven't received any goods against the purchase order. Datahaven's going to allow the AP team to still submit this invoice. And what will happen is it's going to go into what we call an awaiting receipts workflow. That awaiting receipts workflow is something that the team can monitor. And as soon as the goods have been received, Datahaven's going to route this invoice back through OCR to ensure there's a three-way match. At that point, the goods have been received. We already know that there's a perfect match in terms of the totals. So Datahaven will be able to process that. And that's all done behind the scenes without a user having to constantly check up on this invoice to see if the goods have been received. Datahaven can do that for them. The next one we have, let me go to this. We also have an invoice here, which is a perfect match. So this is where Datahaven, and this is actually a partial invoice, was able to look at Business Central data and determine that the total amount on this invoice matches what's on the PO, the shipping charge, everything is in alignment with what was on the purchase order, and all of the goods have been received. So Datahaven will allow the user to be able to process this invoice. And once again, I'm going to mark this to be posted directly from Datahaven's OCR tool. Now, those are the PO-based invoices. The next one we have is a non-PO-based invoice. And this is where an invoice has come in. We do not have any record of it within Business Central. And Datahaven's going to allow the user to, review this. We've identified the vendor that this is going to. And we know that the total amount of this invoice is $294.06. With Datahaven, any of the fields, like if I highlight certain fields that you see on your screen, the system will actually show you where we're picking that up from the vendor invoice. And Datahaven supports two options for non-PO invoices. One of which is where we can extract all of the line level detail and create a purchase invoice with all of this line information. But a lot of times when I speak with companies, they actually just want to create a summary line. So they just want to do a single line for this non-PO invoice in the amount of $294.06. So I'm going to actually create a summary line invoice, and we're actually going to be able to look up the GL code. So from Datahaven, we're pulling information from Business Central, and I can define or easily find the office supply expenses GL code. And we'll go ahead and submit this invoice for processing. And Datahaven was able to determine that this invoice is actually a duplicate. So we are going to give users warning to ensure that no duplicate invoices are processed. But for today's demonstration, I'm just going to give it a unique number, something obviously you wouldn't do in a real world environment. So there you can see, I was able to process 4 invoices in a few minutes, and a lot of that was due to the fact that I was explaining the process. In a real world scenario, I probably would have been able to process those 4 invoices in potentially under a minute. Once those are processed, Datahaven will then export them into Business Central, which I am going to start that process. And once they leave OCR, they would then go into the appropriate workflow queue. So for those that are a perfect match, Datahaven would post those and get them ready for payment. And here you can actually see we've got some of those examples here in a various queue. The ones that are going to be going into what I call an awaiting receipts workflow queue. Hold on a second. So the ones that are awaiting receipts, these are all of the invoices that have come in where we're waiting for the goods to be received. As soon as the goods have been received, we can then, they'll actually come out of this queue and go through the OCR process to be a perfect match. But this is a good workflow queue to be able to monitor, because you can always reach out to vendors to identify any and speak to them about any invoices, maybe where we're waiting for receipts, to talk to them about any early payment discounts that may be delayed because the goods have not been received. Mismatches, that's where anything where you have a freight charge or a tax charge, or there's a discrepancy in terms of the pricing at a line level. Datahaven allows a queue for that to be monitored. And once again, anything that's ready to post would be going into that workflow queue. As I mentioned before, Datahaven's goal here is to allow users to streamline the process of being able to process both AP and AR documents, and then have them be visible to users in all the relevant areas within Business Central. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this, we can also make all of this information available to users in other applications. They can be visible from an opportunity or a quote within CRM or Salesforce, for example. Or we can provide users with access to this information directly from Teams. So we can set up a Teams channel where users can go in and look at any open sales orders. We can look at any invoices. We can look at information that is tying to a job. And as long as users have the appropriate rights, they're going to be able to access this directly from a channel that's been set up within Teams. But going back to Business Central, the last thing which I did want to show, and this is a feature that a lot of our customers love, is the fact that with our deep data linking, I know I keep bringing that up, but when a user goes to a payment journal, for example, once again, we're going to eliminate the need for users have to navigate between the payment journal and individual invoices, which can be an incredible time savings. With Datahaven and our folder structure, we're going to allow users to easily retrieve information that pertains to each payment. So I can actually go in and see each invoice that's been attached, or I should say each vendor invoice that has been attached to the purchase invoice within Business Central, and I'm able to do that from the payment journal screen. I can also see any other supporting documents. And as I navigate from one payment to the other, the folder structure will update so we can see the information that relates once again to that specific payment. And we also, with our workflow queue, can ensure that corporate policies are being enforced. If someone tries to post a payment journal and there isn't a vendor invoice attached using Datahaven, we can notify the user that in this case, invoice 108211 does not have a Datahaven vendor invoice attached. Do you want to proceed with the posting or not? And we can actually prevent the posting from taking place until there is a vendor invoice attached for each purchase invoice on this payment. So hopefully that gives you kind of an overview into Datahaven's capabilities. Let me quickly go back into our PowerPoint. I did want to highlight some of the features that are on our roadmap. Our team is enhancing our Power Platform support. Power Platform is a very exciting tool for Business Central users, and our team is looking at ways that we can take advantage of that, both through workflow capabilities within Power Automate, taking our folder structure, embedding it in Power Portals. So there's a lot of excitement around that area, and we'll have more information on that in the coming months. We've also integrated with DocuSign. So we're going to allow, or we're integrating with DocuSign, where we're going to allow things like an order confirmation to be sent out to a customer and for them to sign that using DocuSign. As I mentioned, during the demo, you saw our standard baseline folder structure. We're working on a folderizer tool that will allow you to make changes to that folder structure without having to utilize the Datahaven team or work with Adobe on that. You'll be able to handle it yourself. And we're always adding features to our baseline product. So we'll have updates of that over the next year. So to finish, why Datahaven? Well, our team has over 25 years of experience working with document management solutions, but document management solutions specific to the ERP space, 15 of which have been focused on Dynamics. We're based in Virginia Beach, so if you have any, technical needs, our team can assist you right away. We can also assist Innovia with the implementation of Datahaven's products. And with Datahaven, we do offer an incredibly strong ROI by being able to integrate with the solutions you use every day. Those include Business Central, Teams. We also offer a search portal for non-Dynamics users to give them access to files that have been supported using Datahaven. And we're also integrating with the Power Platform, as I mentioned. To highlight Datahaven capabilities, I did once again just want to throw up some quotes that we've had from some of our customers over the years. In terms of next steps, reach out to a member of the Innovia team to talk about your AP and AR automation or document management needs. If you're interested, I do have a return on investment calculator that I can send you where you can type in numbers to identify what the return on investment would be for your organization. I'm happy to do a one-on-one demonstration. I know that every team is a little bit different, so I can actually arrange that. And we have a trial that's available on AppSource. So feel free to go out to AppSource, download the Datahaven trial. And with that, I want to thank everyone for attending today's session. And Angie, do we have any questions?
Thanks, Mitch. Yes, we do have a couple of questions that came through. And the first question is the OCR tool only compatible with a one-to-one relationship of one invoice to one PO? And then there's another part on it as well. What if the invoice references multiple Business Central POs? If a vendor acknowledges multiple orders in a single email, would the user need to drag and drop the email to each PO in VC?
In terms of the one-to-one or one-to-many, we can support one-to-many. I'm assuming that is using the get receipts functionality and an invoice created like using get receipts. We can talk to you more about those requirements, but that is something that we do support. And for vendor acknowledgement emails, on that, I would like to speak to you a little bit more in detail about that specific requirement and potentially get some examples, because I know with vendor acknowledgements that I've seen, they can be very different in terms of formatting. So I would want to review those with you just to make sure that there's going to be a strong return on investment. Sometimes I've seen vendor acknowledgement emails where we can process those very easily. Other times, depending on the vendor, it can be a little bit more complex. So I think we would want to schedule a follow-up on that.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. I'll get you that information.
Thank you.
And a couple other questions that we have. Does Datahaven have options to send copies of sales invoices from Business Central automatically?
Yes, Datahaven does have the ability to automate processes for delivering documents, so we can send out order confirmations or posted sales invoices, and that could be part of a job that's kicked off each night. And we can also define that outbound email to include any attachments. So for example, when sending out an invoice, if you wanted to attach a copy of the customer PO, we could do that as well.
Okay, thank you. And can we configure Datahaven to use the original file name rather than one of the subtypes? Can you search based on the original file name?
Yes, so Datahaven can be configured in a variety of ways. So if you didn't want to use the automatic renaming using subtypes, We can have it where Datahaven will allow you to drag and drop and keep the original name. We can also even configure it in a way where it would utilize both the subtype and original file name. So if you wanted to have consistency, but still be able to access and search based on the original file name, we can support that as well.
Okay, and next question is, does Datahaven support the Power Platform?
Yes, we touched on that in today's demonstration with Datahaven. We have some generic support right now. We're looking at different workflow capabilities that we can do with Power Automate. One we had in mind is when a credit application, or I should say, a credit amount is changed on, let's say, a customer card, for example, that we automatically route the credit application out for approval using Power Automate. We're also looking at ways that we can potentially do portals. That's still kind of in early days, but I have a lot of excitement about how we can integrate with the Power Platform and potentially doing things like customer and vendor portals, but that's still a little bit of a ways off.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. I believe those are all the questions that we have for you as of now. If anybody has any additional questions, please feel free to contact your customer engagement specialist here at Inovia Consulting, or you can reach out to Mitch. He does have his information up on the screen. I just want to thank everybody for attending our session today. And if you're watching on demand, we thank you for taking the time out to join us. And again, thank you, Mitch, for the presentation.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
And I also want to let you know that we do have more events coming up, and you can check out our website at inovia.com/events. And you can also check out our training workshop page at inovia.com/workshops. We have a variety of workshops to fit your role, so check out the ones that are right for you and your team. And if you haven't heard our latest Inovia Conversation podcast, we have a library of podcast episodes for you to listen to, and you can browse our selection at inovia.com/podcast. So check out the selection that we have and subscribe so you can get notified when those new episodes air. And we do have some exciting news about our 2023 events. We are teaming up with the DUG community, and we will be having our customer conference as well as the DUG live event in Scottsdale, Arizona. And you can check out our conference page at inovia.com/conferences to learn more. All right, everyone. Well, we thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon at another Inovia webinar. Take care, everyone, and happy holidays. Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you.